Thank you, Speaker. I have a motion on this item. That City Council urge the Province of Ontario to immediately reinstate the moratorium on evictions of tenants. Speaker, a number of the comments and questions that we've heard today talk about what we're doing to increase the supply of good, safe, stable housing, but also some of them talk about what's happening to create the demand for that. Why are more and more people showing up on our city streets? Why are our shelters filling up? Why are so many people living in encampments? There are several reasons for that. The one that I want to address is the eviction of tenants. Increasingly, we are starting to see applications for people to be evicted from their homes for non-payment of rent and other, well, frankly, excuses. Often this is because people have lost their source of income or encountered some other extraordinary expense as a result of the pandemic. Initially, the province of Ontario put a moratorium on evicting people and therefore adding to the homeless population in the city of Toronto. As Ms. Bedard pointed out, several hundred people that we have never dealt with before are suddenly experiencing homelessness, and a lot of them are people who are losing their homes through evictions. I disagreed, and many of us on council disagreed when the province of Ontario lifted that moratorium. But as we go into what will conceivably be the worst humanitarian crisis in the history of the city of Toronto, we have to do everything we can to stop the growth in demand for housing by keeping people in the homes they already have. I want to thank the mayor, by the way, for the time he took over the weekend to talk to me about this motion and for offering support on it. We really need to send a strong signal to the province of Ontario that the most important step they can take in preventing a humanitarian tragedy is to keep people who are already housed. The next thing I wanted to talk about, I was listening closely to the questions that Councillor Holiday had around the process for citing shelters and purchasing or leasing emergency housing. Councillor Holiday seemed concerned that the decision gets made to locate a shelter or to purchase emergency housing or lease emergency housing before the public gets consulted, as if this were a problem. It's not a problem. There is no person in our society who has more right to live in a certain neighborhood than any other person, and there is no person in our society who has less right to live in a certain neighborhood. There was no public meeting when Councillor Holiday purchased his house, and by that same standard, there is no public meeting before we establish housing for people who can't afford to get housing on their own. It's a simple matter of rights. Yes, I acknowledge fully that sometimes when we're housing people quickly, there can be impacts on community. So we deal with the impacts. We don't deal with the question of whether or not people are allowed to live there. We need to provide better supports, absolutely, absolutely. But those better supports rightfully belong with a provincial government that hasn't been providing them. Mental health is a provincial responsibility. And frankly, I think that's the next challenge that we as a council have to take on, which is bringing the province of Ontario to the table so they're providing supports to people who have mental health problems, who have addiction problems, or who otherwise need supports in order to be stable in their housing. I want to acknowledge also that the City of Toronto staff who've been working on this have been doing an excellent job, and the many volunteers who are supporting people who are living rough, either in encampments or elsewhere in the City of Toronto, have been doing a remarkable job. The people of Toronto are pulling together. What is not happening is a provincial government taking responsibility to prevent evictions and to provide supports. Thank you.
Thank you.